Welcome, everybody, to number 133 of the Circle of Wine Writers Let's Talk series. Today's topic is Keeping Afloat, How French Wine Producers Stay Profitable, with Helen Savage and interviewing Fanny Ray. I'd like to say it's welcome to those of you joining us for the first time, either a member or a non-member of the Circle. Circle of Wine Writers was founded in 1960 in the UK and today has over 270 members, split almost 50-50 between the UK and overseas. Our members include wine writers, broadcasters, communicators, and other professionals. There's more information about the Circle of Wine Writers on the website and also how to join. So please go there just to find out more details, and you can also make your application online. I'd now like to hand over to Dominic Buckwell, Circle Committee member, who will introduce the speakers today. Over to you, Dominic.
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, so as Andrea says, I'm Dominic. I'm the newest member of the committee of the Circle, and I guess as such, I've been picked upon to help introduce the session tonight and in future events. So tonight, I'm very pleased to welcome Fanny Ray. Fanny is from a winemaking family with roots both literally and metaphorically on their land going back to pre-revolution France in 1763. So she comes from a pedigree of a wine family, but when she was younger, this was not her passion. She chose to combine a business studies in Bordeaux with singing lessons at the local conservatoire. But sadly, she's not going to sing for us tonight. You may spot the piano behind her, but despite her prodigious talent as a singer, stage fright got in the way of a more glamorous career on stage. And instead, she felt the family business calling her back to take on commercial responsibility for the domain in Bordeaux, about which we will hear more shortly. She's going to be interviewed tonight by our own Circle member, Helen Savage. Helen is familiar to you and is a very experienced wine educator and writer, a member of both the Circle and the Association of Wine Educators. For many years, Helen was based in the northeast of England, but 2 years after Brexit, I'm not sure if there's a link there, but we're not going to get political tonight. She moved permanently to southwest France to pursue her special interests in organic and biodynamic viticulture, as well as in the regions of Champagne and Alsace. She's written a history of French wine back in 2011, which has been translated into French. This is available on Amazon and in other French outlets, but she says it's high time she wrote something else. So tonight, I'd like to hand over now to Helen to conduct the interview with Fanny. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you ever so much. I'm not going to make you look at me very much. I've got one or two slides to show, and then most of the time I'll be talking to Fanny. But if we could please have a look at the first slide, that would be great, please, Andrea. As you probably know, the French wine industry faces a highly uncertain future, with wineries of all sizes going out of business. And there are, I suggest, three main reasons for the current crisis. The first is climate change, which has resulted in 5 catastrophically small harvests in a row in southwest France. We'll hear more about that later. The second is a marked drop in consumption. In France, this is roughly 3 to 4% year on year, while global wine consumption is now at its lowest since 1961. And the third reason for the problems is tariff wars, which have affected both the US and Chinese export markets. In October 2024, Bernard Farge, the president of the CNIV, which is the body that represents wine growers nationally here in France, admitted that overall business is bad and that the crisis is both structural and cyclical. The French government has responded by funding up a grubbing up campaign to try to reduce supply to match demand, to accelerate and boost innovation and revive consumption, and to set greater export targets. The plan for this is to grub up 100,000 hectares of vines out of what's now around 750,000 in France as a whole. Back in November last year, a further €133 million was made available for this, enough to remove 35,000 hectares of vines. The French Agriculture Minister, Annie Genevra, argues that this significant new financial commitment demonstrates the government's determination to save our wine industry in the long term and enable it to bounce back. It's not just another emergency plan, but an investment to give our wine industry a future. I discovered that by the 17th of this month, a further 5,823 vignerons had applied to take part in the programme, and that's removing nearly 28,000 hectares of vines. It seems that smaller producers are mostly attracted to the programme. Over the previous 2 years, 27,000 hectares have been grubbed up, but in fact, in many places, grubbing up is going on apart from the government plan. There's not yet enough hard data, though, to measure how effective the programme's really turning out. There's not much clear information, for example, about the impact of the crisis on folk like wine merchants, restaurants, and most importantly, from today's perspective, small producers who rely on direct and farm gate sales. In November this year, Jean-Marie Fabre, who is the president of the Syndicate of France's independent wine growers, pleaded for further action, urgent action, to save up to a fifth of France's wine growers. To achieve this, Bernard Fage believes that the industry needs to be more innovative. Nothing should be taboo, and without necessarily going down the route of de-alcoholized wines, we'll talk about that in a future Let's Talk, fresher, lighter wines and wines with less tannin, we should try all sorts of ways to try and attract new customers. What kind of advice, therefore, is available to wine growers to keep their heads above water? Here's one example. Is the next slide, please. The NG Vin Training Centre, who offer a wide range of courses to the industry in the Rhone Valley, provides a model which I'm going to use to test out the 3 case studies we're going to look at tonight. They suggest there are 3 factors that wine businesses must take into account in order to secure a profitable future. The first is to think about the market before you think about products. Tricky, maybe. The second is to develop a coherent commercial strategy, which is surely an essential factor in any successful business. And the third is to add value and maybe diversity to your offer by means of wine tourism. So what I'm going to do is study briefly with you 3 businesses, each of them very different, each working incredibly hard and imaginatively to maintain profitability. What I'm trying to do here is to explore some of the challenges they face with reference to the causes of the current crisis and these 3 factors suggested by NG Vin. The first study, which is where Fanny comes in, is in Bordeaux, but away from the spotlight of the class growths. The other 2 are in the neighbouring appellation of Bergerac and the Côte de Duras. Where Fanny is, we're in the Blaye Côte de Bordeaux, Grave d'Ardennau, at a little place called Saint-Mariens, where Fanny, with her brothers Christian and Laurent, run the family estate, which, as Dominic said, is very old indeed. And it was chosen in 2025 by the Guy d'Achette as Bordeaux Winemakers for the Year. They have been noted as being really hugely capable. I have to say there's not much sign of grubbing up around Saint-Mariens, but Fanny told me, and maybe can tell you, that in other parts of her region there is, her words to me were, utter desolation with grubbing up. And that's the case in other places too. But let's get on to the interview bit, which is far more interesting than hearing me talk. So if we could please remove the screen for a moment. Thanks. And Fanny, do you think it's right to think about market before thinking about products? If you have a long established estate with a historic appellation, is that right? Does that fit for you?
I think that the product is the base to find your market. It's very important to hear what customers are expecting. But if you don't produce wines that you like, then you will never be able to sell them. And when we do our wine with passion, and we know exactly how we want them to be, then people come and the wine convinces. That's as easy as that. It's always important to think about the market, of course, but it's not the principal aim to have in mind, I think.
Yeah. Are you tempted at all to experiment with new styles of wine, such as natural wine or orange wine, or with different grape varieties?
Well, not really. We prefer staying in what we know how to do it, and how my brother knows how to do it well. But why not thinking about new grape varieties? Because as the climate changes, then we have to think about new varieties which can be grown in our place with higher temperatures, but also sometimes very bad years. So the grape varieties have to be very stable and protected by themselves. We are looking to through the new chemicals we use. Well, chemicals is not a word I like, but what we use on our vines is not chemicals, but it's something to help the grape, the vines protect themselves from what can happen to them. So we think about it every day, every year. We think of how we can manage to go through these climate changes, and also to keep on making the better wine we want to make every year for to please our customers the best every year, of course.
Yeah. Are you tempted to try any of the new resistant varieties? That means you have to treat
Maybe,
less.
maybe I know that the Chambre d'Agriculture in Blanquefort is working on new grape varieties. We are still waiting for what is the issue of all of this. For the moment, we don't hear a lot about it, to be honest. But yes, I think that will be something to look after, because that's the only way we can keep on working well.
Yeah, yeah. You handle the commercial side of the family business. Dominic's alluded a little
trying.
bit to this in the introduction. How did you come to have that role? It's a great story. Can you tell us briefly a little bit about it? This is a bit of a diversion, but it's great.
I know you like this story.
I do.
Well, at first, I didn't want to be a winemaker. It took my parents from me when I was young, and I didn't want to have a baby which will live the same life as I had. Okay, so as I knew that I wanted to speak different languages, I wanted to speak to many people. I said, okay, what's the better way to do it as being in the commercial side? And so I learned, I went to a business school, international business school, and I learned in English and German. And during this school, I had to make two internships, one of 3 months and one of 6 months. And as my German was a little scary by the time, I chose to make 3 months of internship in Germany. And that's how it becomes a little funny. It's because I had a colleague who was half Greek and half Italian, and he spoke over 5 languages. He was just and when I told him that I was a winemaker's daughter and that I didn't drink wine by that time, he said, "What? You're joking. That's not possible. You can't be the daughter of a winemaker and not drink any wine at all." And it was like, no, but I don't understand wine. My brother and my father couldn't introduce me correctly to wine. So I couldn't try it. I couldn't understand. And he told me exactly that. You are here 3 months. Every Friday night, we will make a tasting. And first, I will make you discover the wine from your area, so Bordeaux, and then the wines from France, then Europa, and then worldwide. And then he did it. And he didn't tell me, how do you smell this or do you taste this? He said, you have to be confident and to trust you, and you will find your way to taste wine. And that's what I did. And I actually took pleasure about tasting. And when I came back from my 3 months internship, I said to my father, I want to taste everything. I want to taste your whole range. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know what you're making, what you're producing. I want to know what our family is able to do. And my father said, Mo, where is my daughter? She's back. She stayed in Germany and they sent me somebody else. And that's how I started to think about maybe create a shop, but somewhere else. I still didn't want to make wine. I wanted maybe to sell my brother wines outside of France. And then I had my second internship in England, and I asked how it works to create a shop or something like that in the UK. And they said that it was too complex and it was not a good idea at that time. So I came back and said, why not start the big deal with my family and keep on the heritage.
But when you were back in Bordeaux and you were doing your singing studies, I know you went to a bar and you persuaded them to take your wine rather than somebody else's, and that led to it being exported to Vietnam, didn't it?
Yes, that's it. That was an incredible story. When I was in the conservatoire, we used to go to have a drink just behind the conservatoire of Bordeaux. And once I said, oh, come on, my wine is much better than this one. I never do this again since then. But by that time, I was like a joke. And he said, okay, if you say so, then bring me some bottle. I tasted. They tasted it and they bought it. And then a customer of theirs came, and I was there too. And they wanted to talk to me. So I went to their table and introduced myself. And I came to, and they entered my wine in their small bar in Bordeaux. But this man had also a restaurant in Vietnam. And once he told me, I have to have your wine in my restaurant, the Bordeaux, in Vietnam. How can I do it? I said, okay, but we need a wholesaler there to bring to get my wines there. He said, okay, I'll take care of everything, and he did it. And I sent the first time it was 10 cases, so 120 bottles. So sent
You still
to
sell wine
Vietnam.
through them?
It's nothing. It's nothing. And since then, I don't know if it still has his restaurant, but the importer who first brought our wine to Vietnam, he's still a customer, and he buys a lot, quite often, yeah.
And the importance of this story is partly that you believe it's really important to talk about your wine. Word of mouth is really important, isn't it? Can you explain?
Yes. Yes, for us, we assume that we convince the customer first, but if the wine is not good, then we won't sell the wine. So what we do is we just make people taste, and then they love a wine, they take a wine, and then they make other people taste, and they become customers too. And that's mostly how our customer field is made, actually. So it's all in word of mouth. And this example is the real one. That's the biggest I had.
And it's a great example. And at the moment, about 70% of your production is sold to individual customers, isn't it? With about 15 to the trade and 15 to export.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Now,
I'm
moving
sorry,
on
my
to the
cat is.
next. Your cat is wonderful. Your cat can come and join us. The second factor that NG Vine came up with is a sustainable business plan. And I know that you're very, very, very keen to talk about pricing policy. I know you're reluctant to put up prices. What's your policy on that?
Well, what we want to do mostly is to take care of our customers because we want to keep them. What we need is that our wine goes out of our cellar. So if we take all the increases of our suppliers and put them directly into our price, then our customers will just say, okay, I'm leaving. I'm not taking this wine. The value is not linked to the quality. So what we do, we tend to lower the price of our suppliers. So we negotiate our prices very, very often. It can be every year. It can be every twice a year. It's very complicated, but sometimes you can't lower the price. So what we do for a few years now, we have delocated our some productions to Spain because in Spain the pricing is lower and the quality is as high concerning all the cardboard. I can't say it.
Cardboard boxes.
Cardboard boxes and the labels. The quality is higher and the price is half the price in France. So that's a shame because we would love to make people in France work, but we can't afford to keep the prices up and up because our customers in France don't have more money. So we have to be very careful about all that. So we keep the quality high and we reduce our margin. We prefer doing that instead of keeping our margin and bringing our price up in order not to lose money. But if we don't lose money, then we lose customers. And making one customer is much more difficult than just reduce the margin, really.
I know you feel that some of your competitors rather, are too quick to put up prices.
I heard a few stories about that, and some of our colleagues, because we are all colleagues in the winemaking, but some of them have the same customers as I do. So we hear the stories from our customers, and some of them said, "Oh, they increased their price of 2 or 3 euros. We can't afford to buy the same wine as before, but 3 euros higher price." So now we don't go there anymore. We just keep on coming at your domain. That I heard that, and that's a shame.
Yeah, but it's what happens.
But
You
that's
also
what
said
happens,
that you have a
unfortunately.
family. You have a family rule, which is only spend one coin when you have two.
Yeah.
That seems rather important to your business strategy.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, that's my grandmother used to say that. We don't like to live under credit. So we want to earn money. And when we have enough money, we take a little to increase the technologies in our cellars, for example. But everything that we earn is directly re-injected into the company to make it better and to make it work better. So it can be technologies in the cellar, technologies in the labeling process, for example. But it's very important for us to have the less credit that we can have. We can have very small credit, but it will be just for 5 years, but not more, because credit is danger for us. So we have to earn two to use one.
Yeah. You also believe that it's very important to be honest in business, I know, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
So that
That's the base.
For example, in 2013, what did you do?
Well, 2013 was a very, very tough vintage. It wasn't stable and it was not worth working on it, but we had to do it, so we did. And when we saw the results at the end of the year, we had just two options, in fact. Either we would sell the 2013 and disappoint our customers and lose them, which will then force us to find new customers, but with bad wine, it makes a bad image, and then bad image, it's a wrong circle, in fact. So it doesn't help. Or we could just skip the vintage and explain to our customers that the vintage was not good at all, and we couldn't afford to offer them this quality, because since 40 years or 50 years now, we say that we want a high quality, better quality, or same quality every year. So if you come with a vintage like 2013 and you say, oh, well, we have to sell wine, no worries, people will buy it. Yes, they will buy it, but they will buy it once, and then you will lose a lot of customers due to that. So we preferred choosing to skip the vintage, and people sometimes said we had a lot of courage, which we don't think it is, but they said, wow, but if you have 1 year less, one vintage less, then how do you live during 1 year? Well, that's true. That's why we just use one coin when we have two. You see, because it helps us during the bad years to be able to do such a big effort, really.
Yeah. How do you maintain the loyalty of your customers?
Because we are nice. No.
But some things are changing, aren't they? Like fairs are no longer working. I know your parents used to sell at wine fairs. That doesn't work so well now.
Yes.
What do you
Well,
do?
we still do wine fairs. We still do. We have around 4 or 5 fairs every year. And that maintains the contact. That's very important. But I think the loyalty we have from our customers is due to the constancy of our wine quality. I think that's how we earn this loyalty from our customers. From first of all, then you have a lot of things coming through that, because I think the welcoming is very important. And I think when people come to our domain, they're welcome as if they were family. We know all of our customers by heart. We don't remember their names sometimes because it's complex, but we know them by heart, we recognize them, and we can talk over, sometimes over 3-4 hours, even on the phone sometimes. So it keeps the contacts again. That's a link for the loyalty. But I think it's a two-sided thing, the loyalty, because if you are loyal, then the other part will be loyal too. You see what I mean? It can't be a one-side and one-way street.
Yeah.
We are loyal to them because we keep on working good in the right way. We work hard on producing high-quality wines. And I think on the opposite, they said, yes, we will keep on going there because they're stable in quality. And of course, we make gifts and goodies when people come at home too. That's another way of fidelizing, but it's not, I think, what's the major part of it, I think.
Yeah. And you maintain contact by sending out regular mailings and things like that, don't you, to make sure that people stay in contact with you?
Yes, we do. We started at... Yes, sorry.
No, please.
Yes. Well, we had to change things with the COVID crisis. So people couldn't come to see us. They didn't know that we were open. So we find a way of creating a newsletter in order to send them little messages to let them know that we were open, that we would deliver around 5 kilometers around the domain. And we started like that, but then we have kept on doing this because it's very interesting to send the news from the middle. We have the comment we have got several when I was at stock, and
I think we're losing you.
people waiting
I think we're losing you, Fanny.
for 8.
I'm going to ask one more question, but I think we're breaking up. NG Vin suggests that wine tourism is very important. Have you gone? Have we lost Fanny?
She whether she just switched off. Yes, it looks like we do. We have.
We've lost it. Okay, well, don't worry about this because this was my last question too. Oh, you're back. Good. Fanny, you're there still. One last question to you before I go briefly to the other two studies. You need to unmute yourself.
Yes.
NGVAR suggests that wine tourism is very important. Is this part of your plan at all?
Well, actually not really, because we have a lot of things to do in order to be not on top, it's a big word, but we want to keep stable the quality and the way we welcome people at our domain. Wine tourism is, well, we obviously make wine tourism because we receive people at home every day, 7/7, nearly 24-hour 24. But it takes a lot of time, this part of welcoming people. So if we had something else, then we will have to put someone exclusively for wine tourism, and for us it will be complicated to do it. But why not when the younger generation will come, which we hope, maybe they will start something else. But for now it's a bit complex. We have already very big weeks, so it's not possible right now.
So many of these strategies depend on the personnel you've got available to do them, like the way where your parents have gone to do the wine fairs, whereas you don't have the time to do that.
Exactly.
And I just note also in passing that when you sell wine to the trade, you actually sell a different wine to the wine you sell to your private customers, don't you?
Yes, we have created another range, another range under another name of the domain, because we didn't want to sell to negotiant anymore at that time. And so we started, I told my parents, I was just out of the business school, and I said, we have to create our own concurrence. And so we started a new wine made totally differently from the wine of our normal range, and we sell them only to wine businesses, not at all to private customers. And it worked until the COVID crisis again, because a lot of associations and landlord and so on stopped making the big events where they needed low price wines, and it didn't came back. So that's a shame, but that's it starts a little to go up now, but it had a crash early COVID crisis.
Fanny, thank you so much. Please stay online because there will be more questions. But okay. I'm going to go on to the next two case studies briefly, which are a bit different. And if, Andrew, we could please go back to the share screen. There's Fanny in cooler weather. It's been outside the the cellar door, and there are a couple of pictures of what it's like inside. You'll see very briefly there's the wonderfully modern winery and the barrel cellar with Fanny's brother's slippers ready so they can walk over the barrels without causing any problem. I think you can agree that Fanny and her family know their market intimately and supply what it wants through a thoroughly, I think, well-defined commercial strategy, and it's a strategy that works. Let's have a look, though, about 90 kilometers to the southwest of where Fanny is, into Bergerac, to the Domaine du Haut-Montlang, which is in the sub-appellation of Montbazillac, where the Métivier family think a little bit differently. I think you'll find in a minute a picture of Philippe and Laurent Métivier. Their estate, there we are, we'll keep them up for a while. Their estate is a similar size to Grave d'Ardenoux. Grave d'Ardenoux is 70 hectares. Here we have 75, but here it's actually a little bit different because it's farmed organically. So a wee bit easier to be organic in Bergerac. It's a bit drier. For Laurence and Philippe, though, wine tourism is hugely essential. It's a growing part of their business, along with a much more diverse offer of wines on sale. But there are some pretty strong similarities with Grave d'Ardenoux too. The customer base is 70% of private sales, 20% trade and 10% export. And they also dedicate a second label just for trade sales. Other similarities, they have regular mailings, they have a commitment to giving time to clients when they arrive at the cellar door. We're even going to take 30-odd members, heaven help them, of my walking group in a fortnight. The backbone of their offer is AOP wines, though, from Bergerac, Côte de Bergerac and Montbazillac. But they've been much more open to experimentation. They offer a varietal barrel-fermented Chenin Blanc, an orange wine, and a Petnat sparkler. Laurence insists that these wines don't just appeal to younger clients. She feels there's a significant market for those who prize both local and organic products who are willing to try new things. Unlike Fanny, she's not so tempted to try the new resistant peewee varieties, but she is more open to other varieties that aren't traditional to the area. Chardonnay and Touriga Nacional are two they're trying at the moment. Like many people here, she dismisses the idea of zero alcohol wine and says it would be far better to stick to grape juice. Despite the fact that the climate is a little drier here, the effects of climate change have been absolutely disastrous. In 2024, they lost 90% of the crop to hail. And they were incredibly inventive. They managed to balance the books with the help of a €20,000 prize draw. And in the same summer, they employed a social influencer to boost their presence on the internet and attract new customers. This was quite astonishing because she made an impact with her videos achieving up to 25,000 views. Quite something. Like the Ray family, the Métivier have valued the contact with loyal clients afforded in the past by small local wine fairs. And again, it's Laurent's parents who do this, but they eschew the larger fairs, which Laurence says are attended often by those who are just really interested in finding something new, a novelty that year. I think the most striking difference between the two estates we've had so far is the commitment here to wine tourism. They offer guided tours and tastings, blind tastings, brunches, informal evenings with food and live music, wine gaming, which is a kind of cunning mixture of wine education and team building for industry. And they find that such events are particularly attractive also to tourists and to the large number of second home owners in this area, not just expat Brits. There are a lot of second home owners from other places too, who then become regular customers and receive regular monthly mailings and news of special promotions. They're even talking about the possibility of a top-class restaurant on the site. There's a family member who's married a leading chef. But the bottom line for Laurence is that we need to do something apart from just producing wine. But just as with Fanny, a personal touch is hugely important. And I think it's quite telling that the estate's slogan is make wine, harvest the encounters. Cultive le vin, récolte les rencontres. And then if we can move on, please, Andrea, with the pictures. My third example is just 20 kilometers away, back towards Bordeaux, across the departmental border into the Côte de Duras, where Julien Blanchard of the Domaine des Allégres has a much smaller estate, 23 hectares, again formed organically. And he has 8 hectares too of plum trees from which he makes the highly prized Pruneau d'Agen. About 60% of his sales are to private customers, and most of the rest goes to the trade. Like Laurence Métifay, he's quite keen to experiment with new styles of wine, especially orange wine, especially natural wine. He's got all sorts of plans for that. He's open to experimenting with some new varieties, interestingly not Chardonnay, including new resistant varieties. But he feels very, very strongly that having worked his socks off to promote the local appellation, he's very reluctant to abandon a brand which he feels may mean a lot to many of his existing customers. The Côte de Duras, the Domaine des Allégres within that is a significant selling point for him. So it's not simply a matter of putting market before product. It's a little more complex than that. Climate change has hit him too hard. He's lost around 70% of his crop in some recent years. And one of his business plan elements is to have sufficient stock to cope with what happens when you get a year which doesn't work. But his stocks are diminishing fast, and frankly, he's worried. And the greatest problem that he faces is that so much of it depends on him alone. It's one thing to make wine, it's altogether another to have to sell it. And if you're doing two things, time is limited. Just as in the 2 other studies, his parents used to go around a lot of wine fairs, actually for the size of property far more than the other 2 estates, and up to a dozen between Rennes up in Brittany and Toulouse down in the south. His parents could no longer do this, and so he had to take over, and he was poorly. He couldn't get round. So he wrote to all his established customers to ask if they'd like wine delivered. And Fanny's spoken, I think, very properly and rightly about the bond you make with customers, but none of his customers replied. And the consequence of this is fairs are no longer part of his plan. He doesn't think they work. They're dying. For the last 3 years, he's concentrated more on regular consumer events, which take place almost every Friday evening, with occasional longer festive weekends, in a converted building on the estate. We might see this in a minute. There are 2 more pictures, one a general, one of the vineyard, and then part of this barn, which has been named after his centenarian. There's the general view, there's the barn. Sorry, the picture of Julien, I wasn't looking at me straight. After his centenarian granddad, Lulu's wine barn. And he and his partner there have tried to create an intimate atmosphere in which a wide variety of food produced by local producers is served. There's live music, there's quiz nights, there's opportunity to watch major sporting events, and of course, an opportunity to enjoy and buy wine from the estate. And the clientele, interestingly, is much younger than that which they engaged with the fairs. They have an average age of around 50. That's young to me, and is made up half of locals and half of expat Brits, interestingly. There are quite a lot in this area again. The success of Lulu's has been, again, this is the point that Fanny was making, word of mouth. And satisfied customers tell their friends. They become brand ambassadors. Though he notes that younger customers also are becoming more and more attracted to what he's offering here. They are also not the only ones to be keen on natural wine and orange wine. He finds that the context of Lulu's, the whole sort of ambiance together, is a good thing for making lots of people try different things and then they buy them. The sheer effort of trying to fulfill different roles causes him to wonder what steps he should take next. And he's not short of ideas at all. He's got lots, but notes, for example, that although he's deeply committed to the philosophy of organic wine production, which costs more to make, he doubts whether most of his loyal customers would really notice if he reverted to conventional methods of production. They're so committed to the brand, they don't mind. He's sad about that. He's also minded to reduce his workload in the vineyard because it's just too much on him alone by reducing the number of hectares under vine and stop selling wine to the trade, just to concentrate on the time-consuming but quality end of the offer. And to do that further and further, aiming at these individual customers with whom he's built up a more special relationship. Well, breathlessly, those are the three case studies. And there's a final slide, please. And it's the conclusions from all of this. If we can draw any conclusions at all, I think the strength of case studies is that they lie specifically in their particularity. They don't have any statistical significance, but they're much more than an illustrative device. I think they can be used, as I hope I've shown, to qualify or disprove general statements and to raise and refine questions and maybe suggest new insights. And from that, I think what we have to say is this: of the three factors that for a profitable future that NG Vin suggested, the advice to put markets before products isn't an easy starting point for a long-established business, especially those that are earthed in and highly committed to the notion of a protected designation of origin. But I think that all three of our case studies demonstrate that it is the quality of their products that's indispensable, whether or not new products are also added to entice new markets. All three, I think, have embraced a coherent commercial strategy, different ways of doing it, but such a strategy is indispensable. I think the example of Grave d'Ardeno shows that a very traditional estate, run well, can still keep afloat. And the other two properties, whilst also embracing that principle, have come to rely on a greater diversification of their offer, both in what they sell and how they go about it. For Romain and then the Domaine des Alifets, wine tourism, as we've seen, is now an integral and essential element in their continued success. All three businesses in this study have been hit by climate change really hard, and the decline in the consumption of wine. But all three have avoided the perils of export tariff changes by concentrating on expanding their local individual customer base. Where a winery is situated inevitably has a considerable impact on its chance of success. And it's not necessarily the case that independent growers in relatively unfashionable or overlooked appellations, Bergerac and the Côte de Duras are surely examples of those, arguably face a greater challenge than those in the more prestigious appellations. There are different challenges. I think if there's any further common characteristic for success, it's the recognition that in a declining market, it's increasingly hard to find new customers and to keep established clients. But we've seen this with bucketfuls with Fanny, I think, tonight. Sheer force of personality and self-belief goes a long way to counter this. It shows that those estates in less fashionable regions may be surprisingly and encouragingly resilient. And long may you continue being resilient, Fanny. I think your wines are wonderful. As I said to you just before everybody else came on screen, I'll be there on Thursday buying some more from you.
You're
Dominic,
welcome as always.
Fabulous. I wish I could come then as well. Very, very interesting discussion, Helen, Fanny. Thank you. We do have time for some questions, and I would love to pitch any if anyone has any. I would like to start by asking Patricia. I think she has a comment. Patricia.
It's comments more than anything. I found Helen's presentation and Fanny's response to Helen's interview absolutely superb. But I also like the substance behind each of the domain's approaches. They've analyzed where they are in the marketplace. They've analyzed what they can physically do or want to do. And the comment I would definitely agree with Helen on this one is that anybody who's undertaken any business studies and or marketing studies, keeping existing customers is always going to be easier than going out and getting new ones. It doesn't mean you won't get new ones, but when they become customers, you really have to work hard to keep those too.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
So I have a question. I think both Helen and Fanny, if you can think about, you talked a lot about the different go-to-market strategies based on where you are in the appellation and the status and the hierarchy. But if you put that to one side, and all things being equal, but you've got different sizes of production. So, say producer A is just a couple of hectares and doesn't produce more than 20,000 bottles. Producer B is a kind of medium, small, say 30 to 100,000 bottles. And then producer C is much more than that and measures in cases rather than bottles. Do you think then this whole strategy around the extent to which you need tourism intermediaries is completely different for each strata of size? Or do you think there are similarities?
Fanny, do you want to answer?
Yeah, well, I think obviously when you have less hectares than someone else, you have to do something else to make people come to your place. But also you can find some niche and go into the luxury products, not very expensive ones, but find something that will ring the bell. Just yes, the way of thinking will be different, but the product will always be in the center of how you think your market and your business. We used to have very few hectares. It was not far ago. It was maybe 20 years ago. We had just 15 or 20 hectares, and we thought exactly the same. The thing was, how can we make people come to our domain and enjoy our domain and our wines? And it started with the Guide d'Achète and the medals, which started to pop up. And then little by little, we needed more wine and we planted more vines. And then we needed more customers, so we had to move on. But I think it's there are steps that we can't miss, and it's every time you have more hectares, you need to keep the quality the same, but you have to think about what else you can do to improve and make better wines. Really, I think that's how we would do it.
I think the only thing that I would add is that when you compare Fanny's family estate and the other two are organic, and they have suffered even more from the effects of climate change. I mean, you take the Métivier family, they have 70 odd hectares of vines, but only got 10% of their crop. So in effect, they're reduced to a very small estate. And exactly. They have to diversify in order to do something. They just don't have enough wine. I remember talking to Laurence's mother, and she was almost in tears that they did not have enough wine to actually balance the books, and thought they might go out of business. And they were forced to do something different in order to try to keep the show on the road.
That's it.
That's it. Thank you. Yeah, I saw an interesting report given to the OIV last year about the extent to which diversification is now so widespread amongst producers all around the world that they reckon something like 25% of income is now generated from tourism, tours and tastings on site activity as opposed to straight sales, bottles sent off. So it's clearly a significant part for some businesses, but it obviously costs a lot more to invest and set up to receive, and you need more staff. But I mean, I see this with English producers where if they're on the small side, 20 to 30,000 bottles, they can sell it all directly. So they don't have to give away margin by going through intermediaries. And if they do cellar door activities, that really helps to attain and retain the sales directly. But once they get bigger than that, they need to give away margin, and then it becomes much harder to stay profitable the bigger they get, because the margins go down significantly when they're selling through.
I think what's fascinating about Grave d'Ardennau is that Fanny puts so much effort into the personal connection rather than doing other things, that all that effort is put there and it pays off. but it requires a huge personal human input to do that.
And that's so impressive with the scale. 70 hectares is
It's
significant.
really impressive. Yeah.
Good.
And
Does
it
anyone
shows
else?
what you can.
Yeah. Any other questions from anyone? Andrea, back to you then.
Yeah, no, I think thank you so much to Helen and also to Fanny. What a super presentation and conversation, really, about the dilemmas facing you and how you've had to adapt and look to going forward.